when we're in Canton watching all the speeches, the Fantasy Footballers podcast has got a live show already sold out at Largo right here in Los Angeles. They've got a live tour that's ending in their hometown of Phoenix, Arizona on August 24th at the Crescent Ballroom. Tickets are on sale now from the I guess we figured since we talked fantasy with Mike Del Tufo's golf story last hour, we might as well continue the subject with fantasy football. Co-host of the Fantasy Footballers podcast. Good to see Mike Wright and Jason Moore. How are you guys?
It's fantastic to be here, Rich.
Yeah, doing great. Sitting in the Rich Eisen chair.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
guest chair.
Guest chair.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you just appeared.
Right.
And you're trying to take my seat.
Right. Give me a couple years, but...
I understand you got 100 million downloads, but I mean, let's just baby steps it. What do you think here?
Just baby steps. But no, super happy to be here.
I'm glad that you guys are here. Andy Holloway is going to join us later on our Eisen Overtime segment. How did you guys get started? How did this all get started?
Well, the podcast really started. Andy and I, we made a podcast just for our league, for our fantasy football league in our office, where once a week on lunch.
What office?
We all worked together at a game studio in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Okay.
And fantasy football was the passion besides making the games.
Yes.
And we made a podcast for 12 people to listen to where we just talked garbage.
It was so great. It was as a listener at that point, one of the 10 listeners.
Yes.
It was so great. They would just mock us. They would
11,
make fun
I
of
listened.
us. And, I would make trades in the league just to get on the show of I want to be the Tradosaurus Rex this week. And then, it's so fun and insightful that I think they decided we can turn this outward. And then they brought me on and
off you go. Off you go, because it's so difficult. I mean, I remember when the NFL Network started, how could we get fantasy football involved in our broadcasts? And it's just so difficult because it's kind of, we talk about it all the time, Chris and I, it's like poker. Like everybody's got a bad beat. Everybody's been in a poker hand. Everybody's had a problem with fantasy football. Everyone's gotten screwed. Everyone's won or something, or not everyone's won. I mean, we did last year, but not everyone. So how do you guys make it entertaining? Like, what is your challenge every single week to figure this thing out?
The combination of entertaining and having bad beats is really important to us because we do an entertaining show. Like we don't, there's some shows you can listen to, they dig deep, they do all the analysis, and you can choose between ZQuil or that show to how do I want to go to bed?
Right.
And so we want to entertain people, but the problem is when you're entertaining, people think you don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
If you have a bad beat and you make a bad prediction, they're like, they don't know what they're talking about. Thankfully, we're tracked by Fantasy Pros, and we're very. I don't want to be too tooty here.
Go for it.
He doesn't want to be too tooty.
I don't want to be. I just have to be.
Yes.
But we've been in the top 10 for most of the last several years out of 150. So it gives us the
top 10 what?
Top 10 most accurate analysts. So it gives us the ability to just have fun.
I'm just but how does one measure accuracy? That you nailed what? What did you nail?
So you rank every single player every single week, and they're all compared. There's a scoring system that they've developed, and so we've been in that for several years. But
you're top 10.
We have been top 10 multiple times, yeah.
All right, so then let's ask him the poll question right off the bat right here, Chris Brockman. We've been asking this poll question all day. Brought to you by our friends at TrueCar for the moment. When it comes to selling or trading in your car, you're going to make good choices, and with TrueCar, you've got a star in your roster. So when you're ready to sell or trade in your car, check out TrueCar. True cash offer not available in all areas. Go for it, Chris Brockman.
Which wide receiver guys do you take first in fantasy this year? Michael Thomas, Odell, Julio Jones, DeAndre Hopkins.
I'll take your PPR answer first.
You don't even have the right answer.
No, you don't.
Okay, when that is?
Devontae Adams.
But if I'm going to answer the poll,
yes,
it's Hopkins.
Yeah.
But I would agree with my co-host here that Devontae Adams has the safest floor and the highest ceiling. I mean, you've got a quarterback in Aaron Rodgers that's, several years in a row is averaging 40 touchdowns a season. He's the clear number one. Jordy Nelson back in the day was often the number one wide receiver. And, I think Devontae Adams, sky's the limit.
Even if it's standard, not PPR?
Oh, even more so for standard. Because he doesn't get the reception total that Adams or that Hopkins is going to see. But he's just – it's so consistent. And that's the difference where even if Adams finishes at 2 or 3, it's not just the end of the season ranking that's important for these wide receivers. How are they doing on a week-to-week basis? Because there's some guys at the end of the year, they'll jump into the top 10, but – 40% of the time you were bummed out that you started him.
So I'm in a league, let's say I'm in a league, 10 teams, and it's a snake draft, and I'm sitting there 5 or 6, right? So I know people are going to throw their lot in with a bunch of running backs. Somebody might even take Mahomes because don't
do that.
We'll get to that in a second. I'm just throwing that all out there. And every wide receiver is available. I'm going Davante Adams, and that's what you suggest every single Rich Eisen Show listener and viewer to do. Yes,
that's what I would do. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I would probably go David Johnson there, or still a running back over if you're at 5 or 6.
Yes.
I'm probably not taking a wide receiver until a little bit later, but the first wide receiver off the board, I would be taking Davante Adams.
First overall is Saquon?
For me, it's Christian McCaffrey.
For me, after he reports, it's Zeke. But, right now, a tiebreaker, Saquon's a great option.
The looks, by the way, you guys are looking at me like I'm crazy for throwing this out there. So Christian McCaffrey in year 3 for you is the number 1 overall draft choice in a fantasy draft. Anybody
that
who's listening in the sound of my voice or watching has a first overall pick in a draft. They based on you, Mike Wright, and you, Jason Moore of the Footballers Podcast.
Well,
Fantasy Footballers
I'm
Podcast.
McCaffrey and he's Zeke.
Okay.
So
you're saying McCaffrey.
yes.
And you say Zeke.
I say Zeke after he reports.
But what if he reports, last week of September, and you have your draft in early August?
Yeah,
what happens then?
If you're drafting before there's clarity to that situation, there's no reason to take Zeke over the other big 3, which would be Saquon, Christian McCaffrey, and Alvin Kamara.
But Zeke's not going to turn into Lev Bell this year. I mean, I can't imagine that happening.
Well, he can, because Zeke, once Amari Cooper came, Zeke was on pace for almost the same reception.
I think he's by
and
holding
target.
out the whole year.
That's what I mean.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. He's not.
Certainly.
That's why
He doesn't
I'm
have the
saying.
leverage.
That's why I'm saying that it's still somewhat safe if he hasn't reported in late August. Your fantasy league is in late August. So many people last year just said, "Screw it, I'm taking Lev Bell anyway."
Right.
And many of them finished in last place in their fantasy leagues.
Yeah, Lev Bell was a rough situation last year, especially when reports from him and his camp were he's going to show up and play, and
Not so much.
Yeah, but the thing with Zeke, like if he's showing up late,
Yes.
I mean we want his body getting acclimated to all those hits that he's going to take. So, like you said, when you were at the beginning of the first round, we've seen running backs come in late to training camp and then they get that hamstring early.
What's your philosophy on Todd Gurley?
Oh goodness.
It's not good. I have a really hard time pulling the trigger on Gurley. What they're saying is great, but what they've done, what the Rams have done, you look at their moves. Obviously, you saw his utilization in the Super Bowl game once he was back in the playoffs. But then they trade up, they draft another running back, they match the tender given to Marlon,
Brown.
Yeah, to Brown, and so it's one of those things where they can say he's still their guy, but every move they've made, follow the money, we say. That's where you can actually see what a team believes and cut through the fluff. And the money says they are worried about Todd Gurley. So I'm worried if you're talking about into the first round.
Yes.
If he drops into the second, I still think he can be productive with an Alvin Kamara type of workload. But I'm not taking him in the first.
Jason Moore, Mike Wright, co-host of Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Andy Holloway, who's the third man in, he's going to join us later on for our Eisen Overtime that's available only on the app. Your philosophy on drafting quarterbacks, I just threw out there. Mahomes was just lights out. I mean, and you get 4 points for every touchdown. This is the format, obviously. The league that I'm in, you get bonus 5 points for 300 yards, another 5 for 400 yards. I mean, why wouldn't I want to take him in the middle of the first round?
So the bonus points does skew things a little bit, but the thing is, like, the reason why Patrick Mahomes was part of it, I mean, 50 touchdowns is sensational, but he was a late round pick or he was grabbed off of the waiver wire. That's why he helped so many teams. And I assume in your league you're playing one quarterback?
Yes.
So,
by the way, I refuse to play in a league that's got more than one quarterback.
Oh!
I will not do that.
I like it.
Twitter's not happy with you right now.
Why? Why?
The new hotness.
Here's the reason.
Please.
Because
Please.
Well,
what are we doing here?
The
two
reason
quarterbacks?
is,
Yes.
The reason is
Yeah.
quarterback, as I think you'd agree,
Yeah.
the most important position in football.
Right.
It's not in fantasy football. And that's what people want to get to, is where there's the market is saturated with quarterbacks who are going to put up excellent weeks. You can get a quarterback so late. It's like Jared Goff, where Jared Goff was second in the league in 20-yard completions, only behind Mahomes. And people they've written him off. You can get him in double-digit rounds, sometimes off the waiver wire, and he's going to put up comparable numbers to Patrick Mahomes. Meanwhile, because you only got to start one of them. Meanwhile, you got to start multiple running backs, multiple wide receivers.
Yeah, because that's the way it's done in the National Football League.
Exactly, but you got to take those guys early. And if you're taking Patrick Mahomes in the second or the third round, you are making a huge sacrifice of your draft equity in a running back or a wide receiver that's going to be fantastic. The wide receivers in the third round, it's littered with incredible talent. And the difference that if you're taking Mahomes there, he has to throw 50 touchdowns. He has to do that to separate himself from the other quarterbacks. And 50 touchdowns, it's only been done 3 times,
so
including Mahomes.
If we're talking Mahomes, then your philosophy is don't take a quarterback until what round?
10. I mean,
come on.
No, I mean, we've done this for years. We win a lot of championships. We get a lot of people that, I know it's surprising.
How many teams are in this?
12.
This
Yeah, usually 12.
So don't take till round 10.
So, I mean, look, I'm a big believer in he brought up Goff and Cam Newton. They're going like round 9. I'm willing to pull the trigger there. But the reality is there's probably 20 quarterbacks that are good for fantasy. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, those guys are going to be just fine. They're undrafted in a lot of these leagues. And you only start 12, but with the depth and the injuries and the bye weeks and everything through a season, at running back and wide receiver, you need as many as you can get. So I just keep stockpiling all of those great ones. If I'm in a league where people are taking quarterback early, great. All it means is my running backs and wide receivers I'm getting in later rounds are better because everyone took a quarterback early. Then I grab Cam Newton or Jared Goff in the 10th round, and my overall team is much better than your overall team, even though you have a better quarterback.
And it's the easiest position in fantasy to figure out who's going to have, or who's high probability they're going to have a good game.
Yes.
And you can grab these guys off the waiver wire where, I mean, every year when you look back, there's always over 40 quarterbacks who put up a top 12 a week. And
there's only 32 teams. So that's a surprising
backup quarterbacks come in, and if you see that they're against the 28th ranked defense against the pass, and they're at home, fire him up because he's going to give you 250 yards and 2 touchdowns, and that's what you need.
I'm sitting there round 11, 12, and I got Lamar Jackson, I got Kyler Murray. Who do I take?
We're Arizona guys.
It's hard, man.
Take that out. Take that out.
Okay, I'll take it out. It's
I know you already
Kyler
threw
Murray.
David. I know you already threw David Johnson at me, and I love him, but I have no earthly idea what to expect out of him. And there's no way, if I've got a 4th or 5th overall selection, I'm just going to go, I'll go with the guy that had a great year with Arians a couple years ago, and I have no idea what's going on. But take the Cardinals fandom out of the equation, the Phoenix hometown out of the equation. Murray, Lamar Jackson, what do you take?
It has to be Kyler Murray because they're both electric on the ground, and running is such a cheat code for fantasy quarterbacks, but they are vastly different through the air. And you've got the new Cliff Kingsbury system coming in where you're going from last year, the Arizona Cardinals, lowest.
Running up the middle.
Yeah, running up the middle over and over
running
and over.
up the middle.
The fewest points per game.
What'd you think of their offense last year? I can't tell.
Let's run it up the middle.
Right, so I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. It's just one of the things where it's like you've got David Johnson, right? You're worried about him. He disappointed last year because he was one of the top 3 picks in fantasy, but he still was the running back 10. But when it comes to the Arizona Cardinals offense going from one of the slowest pace of play teams to what we can presume based on, Cliff Kingsbury coming in is going to be one of the fastest pace of play, and you've got an accurate Kyler Murray. I think that Kyler Murray is a much better passer than Lamar Jackson is right now, even though he's a rookie. So I'm going to take the guy who's a true dual threat versus Lamar Jackson that I think is going to get the majority of his points just rushing.
Well, I should say we have Lamar Jackson on tomorrow's show. I think he's going to have a better year throwing. I do. I just think he's a kid who's got a huge arm. Last year, they threw him in the middle of the season. They totally remade their offense to suit what he could do at that moment. I'd be stunned. I mean, Hollywood Brown just, I think, got cleared physically.
Yeah, he did.
I mean, come on. This guy's going to take the top off the defense, and they got Ingram and Gus Edwards coming downhill to hit you, to maybe to try and make you think that they have the football still. I think he's going to have some easy pickings with all those tight ends, too. I like it. They're going to give him some easy throws, and he's going to sometimes just rear back and throw it.
No, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Lamar Jackson.
But you're already saying he's not as good a thrower as Kyler Murray.
Correct. And that's not an indictment on Lamar Jackson so much as an endorsement on Kyler Murray.
Very good. Very good. Mike Wright, Jason Moore here of the Fantasy Footballers podcast, where all podcasts are available, thefantasyfootballers.com as well, where you can get the ultimate draft kit from you. And the neat part about it is that parts of the proceed go to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, which I know is as near and dear to you guys as it is to me. How'd you get fixed up with St. Jude?
So it was, I mean, we had talked about it where last year we partnered with Crucial Catch. It gave some proceeds to them from the draft kit sales. And this year we just, we were looking around what charity really speaks to our heart. And we're all fathers of 3 kids. And St. Jude just, it was, I mean, perfect match for us.
Yeah, we spent time, all of us have spent time in a children's hospital. My best friend growing up, Brittany, she died young of a serious disease, and I spent a lot of time there. And so it's one of those where it's not a lie to say, like, it really did speak to us. We sought out working with St. Jude because we believe in what they're doing as fathers and as people who've experienced that side. It's just amazing work.
Yeah. But for the grace of God, go any of us with children. And St. Jude depends it's solely based on donations to St. Jude, where nobody sees a bill. They don't see a bill for transportation. They don't see a bill for any for housing. Don't see a bill for any medical costs. Don't see a bill for anything. All the folks that go to St. Jude just focus on the kid and the kid getting better. And I think you chose wisely.
Thank you, sir.
To have portions of the proceed of your ultimate draft kit at thefantasyfootballers.com. Go to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Before I let you go, any of the leagues that you're in last place, does the last place individual
get a
have
punishment?
To? Yes.
Yeah, we do. We developed a Wheel of Water app where you can make bets, water bets. We do it on our show. It's a free app.
And by water, it means you find a very embarrassing way to throw water on someone. Like, for example, is the English Channel. Someone must lay upon the floor or the street, pretend they're swimming, and then you dump water on them. And it sounds childish, but it is very satisfying.
No. I'm just wondering if there's any respectful way to throw water on somebody.
The original
it just sounds disrespectful on its face.
Well, I mean, when you're comparing just a splash to the face, between that and what we call
pouring it in their pockets,
the pocketeer, where it's
a little more disrespectful. Yes. But the nice thing is, when we get our league together, the 11 owners that did not finish last all spin a wheel and douse the drafter, who then drafts soaking wet.
Oh.
In Arizona, where we crank the AC down to 68, it's very unpleasant.
Wow. Wheel of Water app. So you just press it, and then it comes up with any of the most disrespectful methods of water thrown delivery. That's the way it works. Okay, very good. At FF Hitman.
Yes, sir.
That would be you, sir. A fantasy football hitman. At Jason FFL and at Andy Holloway is going to join us in the Rich Eisen Show, Eisen Overtime segment, where I am going to get from you guys dark horses. We just got we got Trevor Davis out of David Bakhtiari.
I thought he might say Jake Kumaro, but he went with Trevor Davis.
Look at you. Now you're just dropping names that people need to go look up just to make you look smart. That just happened.
You caught me.
There you go. Busted. Okay, so stick around for Eisen Overtime if you don't mind. All right, we have a hell of a show tomorrow. I mean, I could not be more excited about tomorrow's show. Wait till you hear who is in studio. That's coming up next right here on The Rich Eisen Show.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download the Rich Eisen Show app.